Hi and welcome back to another training video. In this one I just thought we'd do a quick tutorial about how to get your horse ready to be ridden. So one of the biggest challenges is getting your horse to stand still with a mounting block. And as you can see here, we're practicing just without a saddle, leading her up to the block and then getting her to stand so that she's parallel to it. So when you lead them up, often, they might swing their back out so that when you stop they kind of turn to look at you. But if you just, ask them to move over. And then to start with, I didn't lean over properly, but just enough. And then if you have carrots with you, which I'd recommend to start with, then they know that actually leaning over means treat. So then you tell them, well done, great. And then repeat that a few times until they see the mounting block. They know that they're supposed to line themselves up with it, and then stand there quietly until you give them the next instruction. So you can see again she kind of swings out her back end, and for me it's just easy to say, okay, let's move over so that you stood properly, and then try and get them to stand square, because it's just better if they're stood square when you try to get on them. Get yourself comfortable, and she knows what's coming, so she's already turning her head, which isn't ideal. So I'm telling her to wait. And then you can see this time I'm actually leaning over him. I would recommend wearing a riding hat, but for me I really wasn't. As you can see, my feet are planted firmly on the steps. But when you're actually practicing leaning over a horse, getting them ready to ride, definitely always wear a riding hat. So now long reining is tremendously popular, but she's managed to break the lunge ropes with that. So what I've started is clipping the reins on and standing next to her and just controlling her with the reins like this. So I use my elbow to kind of nudge her in the side, which would be where my foot would kick her. And then I'm getting her used to the feel of the contact with the bit. And you can see she's struggling to stop initially, but it's that kind of practice that's useful. So this time we've got the saddle on. And again, you can see I'm not putting much pressure on her to line herself up. Now, again, if I was doing it properly, then I should have just asked her to move over. And it's better to get it perfect rather than compromise, because when you start compromising, things go wrong more. So you can see I'm not leaning properly again here. But it's just enough so that she's now associating that I might get on the saddle. So I had no treats this time, but you can see she's happy, she's relaxed, and that's all that matters. And then again, we're asking her to go forward, and I'm practicing with the reins. And you can see the more contact there is, the more she pulls her head. For a long time I rode a bitless and only really used a head collar. So she's not being naughty, but you can see she's chewing and she's trying to figure out what I'm asking, and we're saying okay. I'm also using voice commands. So I'm trying not to put too much contact at this point because she's not really happy with it. But you can see she's speeding up, and that's okay, but you can also see when I'm putting the pressure on the different reins that she is responding. I'd also recommend, again, taking it slow and doing it in an enclosed space, because obviously you are quite close to them. The benefit of long reining is you've got some space. So here we're just practicing over poles, and she's putting her head quite low. But the reason that I decided to start doing this was because I thought, okay, she has been ridden before in a bit, but if I get on her and I don't have the right control, it's a lot more dangerous, whereas if I'm on the ground I can see what she's used to. So here I asked her to stop, and you can see she's just ploughing through. And you can see she's not really comfortable with the bit, but it took her a while to actually listen to it. And then as soon as she did it, give her plenty of praise and then keep going. But it's that kind of safety you want before you start riding, because you don't want them to start fighting you while you're on their back. You'd rather do as much as you can, because you can see she's already planning to move forwards. And that's not ideal, but that's the kind of little quirks you want to get past on the ground if you can. So it's better to keep sessions short and sweet in the early phases. So yeah, that's it. We tried to just keep everything calm. You know, I wouldn't recommend trotting with this. That would be better for long reining, but for now, just getting the basics of control. The other thing that we've been working on is cantering with the saddle, which only recently started to go well. And we managed to capture it on camera once. So we start by getting her to have the right kind of forward trot over some poles. Because that gets her moving freely with the saddle. You can see it's moving around a bit. And then on the downhill, you ask for a canter. And you can see she did it. So that kind of confidence is what you want before you ride your horse. And you want to build on that. Because the last thing you want is to get on a nervous horse and then they speed up. And then you have a problem because they're afraid of the saddle. So it's nothing to do with riding, it's nothing to do with instruction, but that's a way to kind of avoid an unnecessary fall. I think last year I kind of skipped a few steps because she was doing well, but then I think that's what led to the fall, because she was still not completely comfortable with the saddle. And then everything you do, try and do it on both reins. So although she did the canter well on the one rein, I didn't want to push it too many times because I don't want it to get balked. So again, ask her to go over the poles because it gets a nice forward trot. When we started this exercise, she was doing 4 strides, 4 little steps in between. And then again on the downhill, you ask her to canter. And see how she stops? That's because she has a more powerful canter on that rein, meaning the saddle moves more. So although I praised her verbally, I still said no, we're going to keep doing it. Because what you don't want is a horse that breaks into canter and then starts skidding to stops. So again, it's easier for her to canter on the downhill. It's easier for her to make that transition. So she couldn't quite figure it out there, but we say that's alright. We carry on and do it again. You see she's slowing down a little bit because she's tired and she'd rather have a break, but it's a fine line between when to give them a break and when not to. So you can see she cantered and again she stopped, but then we say okay, now we can take a little break, because she did it, she tried, and a lot of the time all you can do is ask for a horse to try. So you can see that I gave her that moment to walk, calm down, collect her thoughts. Because the last thing you want is for them to get more and more worked up about a certain task. So I don't want her to just keep running in circles. We say, okay, now we try it again. She knows what I'm asking her to do. You can see she's throwing her head around a little bit. That's because she finds it difficult at this point, and that's alright. So we're taking it easy and building her confidence before I get on her back. So you can see, there you got a few strides. And although she was hesitant, you can see she didn't skip to a stop. And that I was thrilled with, and that was enough for the day. So thanks for watching.